If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know I'm a fan of Helluva Boss, and have dedicated several videos to the series. One of those videos involved me hating Moxxie for how he acted in Unhappy Campers. To summarize, he was a jerk to his wife by ignoring the fact she pointed out the target, while also treating her like crap when she was getting the attention he wanted. I also pointed out that Blitzo was justified in saying this to him at the end of the episode.
Gonna be honest, Moxxie, not too bad for your first solo mission.
Really, sir?
No, not really. You're a fucking disgrace.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
I'm bringing this up because someone commented on that video defending Moxxie. Medislay427, sorry if I mispronounced that name, talked about how Moxxie is their favorite character and brought up several points to defend him. I had to admit, some of these were decent counters to what I had said in my original video. But has that changed my mind on whether Moxxie deserved the amount of hate he got? Not really. This isn't to say they didn't do a good job. I merely had a counter to each point they made. Also, I thought it would make an entertaining video, and I decided to talk about each of their points while explaining my counterpoint. After all, I preach about my videos being a way to open a discussion, and I saw this as a way to prove I'm open to any debate, whether you agree or disagree with me. With that out of the way, let's go to their first point. Point 1. Not sure if you were joking about this one. The deal to offer the first kill free if not completed in 24 hours was only for Mrs. Mayberry due to the office being set on fire in front of her, and before we start on how it was Moxxie's fault, he was startled. He wasn't being actively reckless. Sometimes accidents just happen and no one is at fault for it. But for argument's sake, let's say the deal is still in place. Millie was the one that told Moxxie they had all week to get the job done, so she would have equally been at fault for causing them to lose out on payment. In my original video, I joked about how, in the first episode, Blitz offered Mayberry a deal that they'd be done in 24 hours, or it would be free. It was kind of a joke, to be fair, but I was also making a point that in terms of running a business, Moxxie should care more about finishing the job as soon as possible. Finishing a job faster than expected makes your business look better and allows you to move on to the next job that may be waiting. At the end of the day, Moxxie should care more about getting the job done instead of caring about what way is going to make him look even better, especially when it's delaying the completion of said job. Point 2. It wasn't just a simple mission. They were being asked to do an investigation which is outside their field. They're assassins, not detectives. Moxxie was trying to explain the job to Blitz, but he just kept cutting him off and told him to take care of it himself. If he'd bothered paying attention to his employee, instead of cutting him off when he was asking for help, he probably would have decided to come along himself or thought twice about putting Moxxie in charge. He knows his team well enough that he should have realized Moxxie's ego, tendency to overthink things, and stubbornness to back down would hinder an investigation. So I'll concede that they're right about this one. When I said it was a simple mission, I meant in comparison to saving Stolas in Western Energy. I agree, I should have made that more clear in my original video. However, I want to say something about the part where they mentioned they're assassins, not detectives. While that is true, we've seen the M crew able to find things out on their own. For example, I made this point about Blitz in my Western Energy video. When Stryker is about to shoot Stolas, Blitz stops him. Keep in mind, it's never shown that Blitz knew what Stryker was planning, or that he attacked Moxxie and Millie. The only reason that Blitz being there makes sense is if he found out about Stryker on his own. On top of that, we also saw in Western Energy that Moxxie and Millie could find information independently, so the idea that they couldn't do that when we've seen the opposite doesn't make sense. Again, I'll admit I should have made that more clear in my original video. Point 3. Moxxie was an inexcusable dick, but he wasn't entirely wrong about Millie galvanizing for views instead of helping him solve the case. He was actively working all week while she was playing with the other campers. She could have at least tried to do some social digging per their original plan. Moxxie also never said that he wanted to do it by himself. He wanted to do it his way, but he never said anything about not wanting Millie to help him. Okay, this point is one I have a few problems with. You can argue that Moxxie isn't wrong for being mad at Millie, but my problem is he's a complete hypocrite here. He was trying to do the very thing that was happening with Millie. As I pointed out in my original video, if Moxxie had cared that much about the job, it would have been done when Millie had pointed at the target and said it was him. That leads me to my next issue with this point. As I pointed out, Millie had identified the target and proved why it was them. What else was she supposed to do at this point? He actively ignored her because she didn't do it his way. Again, if Moxxie really cared about the mission, they could have finished it the day they got there. Point 4. Okay, now you're just looking for excuses to put Moxxie down. What does Millie being the one to get intel on where Stryker was in Western Energy proof? Moxxie asked her to do some digging because he needed to gas up the van, and all she did was walk up to the first group she saw. Do you think Moxxie wouldn't have been able to do that if she was the one getting gas instead? And if we're going to bring Western Energy into this, keep in mind that Moxxie is the reason they survived and won the fight. He was able to psych Stryker out and get the upper hand while she was trapped. It proves that Millie can get reliable information. Yes, Moxxie could have done the same thing. My point is that both times, Millie got the information that they needed. However, he chose to listen to her the first time while ignoring her the second time. Oh, and just to play devil's advocate, since you admit in your second point that Moxxie tends to overthink things, does that mean you'll admit to the possibility that Moxxie would have overthought questioning them if he and Millie had switched places? What I see is that Millie is straight to the point, while Moxxie overcomplicates things. Again, if this is how Moxxie acts when getting information, then it's safe to assume the same could have happened in Western Energy. This is another reason why he should have listened to her instead of complicating things. As far as you saying that Moxxie is the reason they survived, him psyching Stryker out did save him and Millie. I'm not arguing that. However, Millie hit the statue to take out Stryker and end the fight. Keep in mind that after Moxxie psyched him out, he got back up and pulled out a gun to shoot him. Had Millie not broken free, are we sure that Stryker wouldn't have shot either of them? My point is that they work better together, which is more reason to be mad at Moxxie. He went against what Millie pointed out and made things more complicated. Point 5. What makes you think Moxxie wouldn't have felt bad and apologized to Millie on his own? You really think he wouldn't have reflected on how he acted once he cooled down and realized how he treated her? I do agree that he needed to be called out, and I'm glad Millie finally did it. So I'll admit, this was more personal for me. Whenever I was treated the way Moxxie treated Millie, I never got an apology unless I acted like Millie. If I didn't and tried to talk to said person calmly, I was normally told that it was my fault, that I was a horrible friend, and that it didn't matter how I felt. Again, I only got an apology when I had enough and called the person out. But okay, maybe it's too personal for me, and Moxxie would have felt bad eventually and apologized on his own. So how long do you think it would have taken for him to apologize? The same day? The next day? A whole week? Possibly longer? Or even worse, what if Millie assumed she was the problem and never brought it up again because she mistakenly thought Moxxie was right? Would it be okay if that happened instead? No, because Moxxie was an ass. I don't care if he finally calmed down and realized he was being an ass. He was being one for no reason and deserved to be called out since he wanted to pick and choose when the mission was important. I'm just thankful Millie didn't make the same mistake I did and assume she was the problem when Moxxie was trying to lecture her while being a hypocrite. Point 6. Moxxie absolutely deserved a harsh reprimand for how he handled the mission, but it's one thing to criticize the work and another to insult the person. Blitzo could have said, "No, not really. The way you handled the job was disgraceful. That was an embarrassment. Stop effing up and do better." Would have had the same impact without insulting Moxxie as a person. While I agree Blitz was overboard, I still think it's the only thing that gets through to Moxxie. Like I pointed out in my original video, when you see Millie being kind and supportive, he ignores her and eventually goes off when his plan isn't working. However, when Millie calls him out and points out he could have finished the job already, he drops it and then tries to complete the job. I'm not arguing that you should automatically be harsh to get someone to learn something. However, when someone pushes you to the point that nothing else is working, what else are you supposed to do? If Moxxie's ego will get in the way of finishing a job that could have been finished in one day, and then act like he's the only one who cares about completing the mission, then he deserves people treating him harshly. And their final point is, but speaking about Blitzo, how come no one talks about how he abandoned his responsibilities for a week? He just didn't show up for work, didn't check up on his employees, didn't handle his own company because he wanted to stalk his sister. Instead, he dumps his responsibilities onto his employee who has zero leadership experience or training while not even knowing what the job is because he kept cutting Moxxie off. To be clear, I'm not excusing Moxxie for how he handled the job. He's a grown man and shouldn't have screwed up that badly. But Blitz was an absolute failure of a boss, and I don't see anyone calling him out. Double standards much? I know this doesn't make it better, but Blitz is the boss of IMP. Like all businesses, a boss can make decisions like that if they want to. We also know that Blitz cares more about family, and had Moxxie not been there or pressed it, Blitz would have told the client the job would have to wait. Also, while you call it stalking, Blitz was worried his sister was back on drugs and had been trying to repair his relationship with her. He even asked her about her drug addiction when they see each other again in Unhappy Campers.
Supplier of what? You're not back on that H8, are you?
Fuck no! It's just heroin.
Oh, thanks, Satan.
While I agree he could be doing this better, we know he'll always put family first, regardless of how they feel about him. As for the Zero leadership or training part, Western Energy was before this episode, and again, you argued that Moxxie was why they survived against Stryker and Western Energy, but now you're saying that Moxxie had no prior experience. And even if we cut out Western Energy, we've seen him and Millie take charge of a mission back in Spring Broken.
It's looking like it's up to us to handle this list.
Hell yeah! Team M&M getting shit done, making the money.
Considering what we've seen from the series, I don't buy the Zero leadership experience part. I want to reiterate that I don't hate Moxxie. Again, I'm just reacting to him doing something wrong and calling him out for it. Chances are, I won't be hating Moxxie for the rest of the series, and I do view this as a way for him to show growth by learning from his mistakes in Unhappy Campers. And if that happens, I'll most likely make a video about it. Until then, this video is done. If you enjoyed it, please like this video and subscribe to see more of my content in the future. I'm Marco Strange. Stay safe, stay strange.